This screencast is to show parents how they can support the student through Family Connection and to explain some of the features in Family Connection that a student can use as an independent tool to organizing themselves. Okay, I will start with the login page. If you were sent this when you first enrolled with CollegeSource, but if you don't have it, just email me, and I'm putting my email address here, and I will reset your password and send it to you. But otherwise, you can log in, and you could do this along with me and just pause, if you want to try out some of the things that I'm showing you. And I'll click Remember Me and log in. Okay, so we're logged into the parent site. I'm actually going to be showing you most of the things through the student's site, and it's almost identical to the parent login. The only things that the parent does not have permissions to do is to add schools to the final application list and to add careers to the My Careers area. We're just trying to empower the student to make those final choices. So it's virtually the same. What I want to talk about today is how the Family Connection is going to be a tool that we're going to use to develop certain skills for success in college. So we'll be mainly talking about how it's going to develop stress management skills, consistency of information across all students and across the college research process, time management skills, research skills, goal setting skills, career and major research, and organization skills. So we're going to basically go through all of those areas in the presentation. Okay, so here we see that we're logged into the Family Connection, and the first area I talked about is stress management, and essentially there what we're trying to do is set internal deadlines that we can make sure that we're well ahead of I think deadlines are probably the most stress-inducing, so we're well ahead of our deadlines. Some rough milestones that I've probably elaborated when we've met before are that we're trying to complete about 3 applications by the beginning of October, 3 or 4 more by the beginning of November, and the remaining by the beginning of December. So we really look at our drop-dead, everything-done deadline as being December 10th. In the case of students who apply for early applications, we may not send all the applications until we hear back on December 15th, but nonetheless we're going to have all of our applications completed. So as an assistance in this process, I would hope that you can help follow that path. Obviously we're going to try to empower the student to keep to their own deadlines, but that is the goal. The second thing I think in just stress management is understanding the path in front of you. And as I move into the 12th grade year and after students have gotten into college, we talk a lot about the differences it's going to be when you get into college, and that though you've been studying anywhere from 4 to 6 subjects over 2 years in 11th and 12th, in college you'll be studying 4 to 6 subjects every 4 months. So the pace is very different, and it's important to be able to look forward, see where your bottlenecks are, and work on things well before they're due. And it also helps to understand that path in front of you. So one of the things I'm hoping Family Connection will do for you as parents, and particularly for students, is help them understand kind of what's coming up and broad milestones that they understand, where they're going and how to get there. The second thing I mentioned was consistency of information. So in that, I use this as a good communication tool to make sure that students are aware of what they should be working on. You've gotten mails in the past. You can always go over here to the new messages, and you'll have all your your read messages as well as your new messages. So new messages will come in here. I send out these focus area mails periodically, and I think that these are great mails to come back to when the student has some time to work on college preparedness. So I encourage students to maybe pick an hour or 2 hours at different times during the week that they can focus on their 5-year plan. So they could always come to this focus areas mail. And in this attachment here, 11th grade focus areas, I break it down into what they should have been focused on in March and April. And lots of other good information here. So I just point out that in your inbox you've got your viewed messages, you've got your new messages, and a student can always come there in case they don't find it in their huge Gmail or Hotmail folders. And these would also be in your inboxes under parent information. The other thing about consistency of information is just understanding kind of the broad profile of students in various schools, and I'll talk a bit more about that when we go into the colleges tab. But just having a realistic idea of what students look like in particular colleges and where your student is in terms of how closely they look like that particular student or that school. Okay, so the next thing was time management, and this is probably the most important area that I'm going to describe in Family Connection. When you click on the My Planner tab, you get 4 sub-tabs. First one we come into is the Overview tab. This is going to tell you, and this is not an actual student, it's a fake student that I use, and so he's a bit lazy. He's got quite a few overdue tasks. So this gives you the overview of what's due, what's overdue, what's coming up next. And then I would jump over into the Tasks Assigned to Me tab. This is going to be all the tasks. Okay, so it will actually show you the tasks that you've completed as well and what's on the horizon. The tasks that are marked with stars, these are all tasks, all of these are tasks that I have assigned to the student. But the tasks that are marked with a star are the ones that are required, and then the ones that aren't marked with a star are more for enrichment. If you click on any particular task, you'll see that you get a little more information. So in this one I ticked on the task, complete steps and prompts for preferences of the school master list. Now, most of the 11th graders going into 12th grade would have completed this already. It's the first step in our process of determining the schools that the student will apply to. So it suggests that you read through the document, choosing your college list, which is attached, and then send back the steps and prompts worksheet to your counselor. So there's the steps and prompts worksheet, and let's say this student had completed the task and emailed that back to the counselor, then you can mark this as complete. If the student had a particular question, okay, let's see if my internet has gone up. If the student had a particular question, they could click on the Raise Hand tab, and if they raise their hand and ask a question, it will come to my email address. Okay, I will be right back when I figure out this problem. Okay, so continuing on with the time management skills that we want to develop through the Family Connection. We were in the tasks assigned to me, so those are tasks that I assign to the student. These are actually organized into goals, and then programs, and then tasks. So I use the broad goals to create specific programs. For instance, a program within building your resume might have 3 or 4 tasks assigned to it, and choosing your college list has several tasks assigned to it. And so I think where I would hope that parent involvement in this is, just keeping track sometimes of the tasks, and especially where they're overdue, If you see a mail from me go out to a student that tasks are overdue, then that can be taken very seriously, because they're getting automated reminders that these tasks are coming up or that they're overdue. So any specific mail from me would mean that we're really falling behind. And I would also just point out that as we get further into actually creating the applications, we're going to have a lot more tasks coming up, so it's best to just kind of stay on top of these things so that it doesn't become overwhelming. Again, touching back into the stress management skills that we're trying to develop. So next I want to go into the goal setting skills, and this is related to the time management. If you click on the goals tab, the blue tab, you'll see that there are some broad categories that are the goals that I've set: career exploration, choosing your list of colleges, developing skills for colleges, extracurricular goals, intellectual curiosity, other goals, and personal branding. So, in some of these we see some of the programs that are already set: choosing my perfect fit colleges, and there's various tasks if you click on that. And that will bring us into the specific tasks that are necessary for that goal. But the main thing I want to point out in looking at this right now is I would also encourage the student to create their own goals within these broad goals. And probably the area that they would mostly be doing this would be in the extracurricular goals. I've talked to all of them about having one or two specific goals that they would work towards every month in the one or two areas that they're trying to develop. And I think we've probably had longer talks about the importance of that, but just from a logistical standpoint, it's going to be very valuable for them to have some frequency in working on their non-academic goals or their extracurricular goals. And I think this is a great way to kind of pin them down to some specific timelines that they set for themselves, but maybe you can work through them with that. So they would define a particular goal up here in this field, and this is based on the SMART goals or SMART criterion. So they will further define what is the specific things that you will accomplish in doing this. How will you know when you've achieved this goal? How is it measurable? Is it realistic? And this is probably a lot where parents can help, is just looking at the month ahead, and here we are in May now when I'm recording this. Many of the students have exams, but the idea would be to have goals even during those very intense periods of time, but they would just look at making it a smaller or less time-consuming goal. So parents can kind of help in making them understand whether it is realistic. Relevant: why is this goal important to your life? And how can you achieve this goal? Timely: so setting a specific timeline. Once they click Add Goal here, it's going to then prompt them to define a couple specific to-dos related to accomplishing this goal in the time that they've given themselves. And those will go over into the to-do list, and they'll also be in their overview. So any to-dos that the student has created themselves will be added to their calendar. Okay. The to-do list is also, it's possible in this tab to just create any one-off to-do. I keep telling the students I want them to use this for everything. So if they're planning on studying for math, 2 hours a day, because they've got a test this week, they can associate it to a particular task, or they can call it a one-off task, and they can then give themselves a timeline. I'm going to do this every day for the next week, and then add that to do. I am encouraging them to do everything. Throw in a dentist appointment, or anything that they have. One other thing that I would point out real quickly is that there is an iOS app for this. So if the student has an iPad or an iPhone or a iPod, they can download this app, and it will give them a good calendar that's accessible on their mobile device. Okay, so that's really on the time management, and I'm just I'm encouraging them to look at this regularly for the tasks that I assign, but also obviously to use it for all aspects of their life. And I have a lot of students who have graduated from high school and they continue to use this. They'll still have access to this when they're in college. So, use this as a way to organize your life in college as well. The next thing that we'll talk about is research, and particularly research within colleges and careers. So if you go to the College tab here, we see that there's several things within college research. Now, in CollegeSource, SuperMatch, College Match, College Compare, those three are really, I'm kind of streamlining that process by the steps and prompts task and creating their first initial master list. But I do encourage students to go ahead, or even parents, to go ahead and look through these. I just find they throw up way too many schools, so that's part of my streamlining the process, is helping them narrow this down. But even in the master list that I send, I always make it really clear that's not comprehensive. If there are other schools that they discover or that they're interested in, they should by all means go ahead and let me know what those schools are, and we can add them to the appropriate category of likelihood to get into. You've got college maps here, lots of good information. But I think where I'm going to focus your attention right now is in just looking up particular schools. So let's just say we were looking up a school called Lafayette. Okay, so you can just throw it in there. It'll throw up some options. So I'm looking at Lafayette College in Eastern Pennsylvania. And one of the things that you'll see at the top here, this gives some basic information. So you've got addresses. If the student clicks on send an email, it'll give a little pop-up with the student's email address, and you can shoot a mail off to the college, see if they're visiting India this year, or if they have any questions about particular requirements. Okay, you can also see here at the top, how do you compare? So we see our little sample student here has got a 3.8 GPA, which is stronger than the row below is students I've had in the past that have applied. So I've had 8 students apply and 4 that have been accepted. And this shows the average GPA and SAT scores of those students who have been accepted. So you've got it broken into different things. You've got combined 1600 SAT, that'll be out of critical reading and math, which many schools put more emphasis on those 2 sections. You've also got the combined 2400, the single highest 2400 score, and the combined or super score, that's over different sittings. And so you can see how you kind of match up to students I've had in the past. Below, you've got a bit of general information. So this is a private school, 2,500, which I would put in the small school category. No religious affiliation. It's in a small city. And you've also got some links to College Confidential. College Confidential is a great site, and they have a forum there where students talk about a variety of things related to admissions. And so if you're looking at Lafayette College, you're going to get some links that have happened in the last 24 hours in this case about Lafayette College. You can click to more links. And College Confidential is a lot of fun. It's a rat hole. I get stuck in there a lot of times. Then you have also the application deadlines. We note that with Lafayette, there's an early decision deadline. It's November 15th, which is slightly later because most of the time they're November 1st. And we also have an early decision 2 deadline on February 1st, which is very late. So that's interesting. After we've seen that, we might want to go into the admissions tab. And the admissions tab will give us broader information about SAT scores across all the students who got in last year. And the nice thing about this is it also breaks it into the 3 sections. So we can see that in math, the highs of students that got in last year was 700, lows were 620, and the middle 50% was around 660. So generally speaking, we can see that if I'm above 700, 680, and 675, then Lafayette is a pretty good chance that I'll get into this school. On the other hand, if I'm below 620, 590, and 580, it's a pretty long shot that I'll get in. We can also see what else they require. Looks like Lafayette does require subject tests. And I'll point out this percent accepted, 40%. Mainly I'm pointing that out because I don't find it to be a very useful statistic. Colleges vary in terms of their strategy of deflating this artificially, meaning trying to get a lot of students to apply. You'll also note that this is always fairly high in public schools, and that's because they accept a lot of students from in-state residents of that state. So I don't find it to be a very useful metric, but I think a lot of people give it more importance than it really is. I'm not going to go into these tabs, but you can explore them. Financial aid, majors and degrees, student life. We'll talk about different clubs and organizations. So as you can see, there's a lot of information right here. And with the process of choosing the right fit schools, I'm going to come back to the student with a master list of colleges broken into different categories in terms of their likelihood to get in. And then I'm looking for them to do an initial shortening, and this is something parents can help with as well, of just eliminating schools in each of the categories or choosing schools in each of the categories so that they can bring it down to a smaller list. And once they've brought it down to a smaller list, say Lafayette was one of those schools that remained in the shortened list, and they look through here and maybe get enough information that says, I'm interested. Okay? Then they can click on this Add to List link. That's going to send it to colleges that I'm thinking about. And we'll go in there in a second. Well, actually, we'll go in there right now. So if I go into colleges I'm thinking about, I'm going to see various colleges that are in my colleges I'm thinking about. This first one, Bard, as you note, it's got a parent added by parent here. So that can be a way that you could, if you came across a school that you thought was interesting, you could throw it into the colleges I'm thinking about. As I mentioned earlier, only the student could then select that college and move it to the application list. You won't have that option on your account. And so if we were, let's say the student saw, okay, parent has added this, or maybe Prab has added it, or counselor has added it. So if I look at Bard College, and I got the basic information, looks like I'm pretty good in terms of the SAT scores. Now maybe I want to do a bit more in-depth research as I begin to determine whether I want this to be on my targeted colleges for applying to. So then I can click on this visit website. That opens up a separate tab which will take me directly to the college, and I can begin researching the specific department that I'm interested in and other areas that I'm looking at. We're going to get more into the more in-depth research in June, but essentially I think what's really important is for a student to be able to determine what are the 4 or 5 things that I'm most excited about in any particular college. Maybe they discover a particular college that they really love, and then I would encourage them to try to find 4 or 5 things that make that college their first choice. And if they have that, then when they're researching other particular schools, they would look for those 4 or 5 things. So that makes the process of researching a particular college a lot more intent-driven. And as we all know, these websites can get kind of confusing when you're just meandering around, and pretty much every website looks good. So we're looking at determining what those 4 or 5 things are, and I think that's another area where parents can really help. There are other things here that I would encourage you to kind of play around with. You have overlaps, which will tell you other schools that are similar to this particular school. So maybe these aren't on the students list, but they would look at, maybe basically what overlaps shows you is that students that I've had in the past that have applied to Bard have also been excited about applying to these schools. So if you really loved Bard, you could say, all right, well, let me take a look at some of these other schools that probably might have missed out on my master list and see if they give me, if they get me excited. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about in Colleges tab. I think it's great information, as I said, consistency of information, and should be a great tool for students to do this independently and then come back to you guys and to me with some of their takeaways. Okay, so we did talk about goal setting when we were talking about the My Planner, and just having the parents get involved in the extracurricular goals, trying to get them to, encouraging them to do 1 or 2 goals a month. The next thing I would point out is this careers tab, and most of you have heard, or if you haven't, I'll tell you now, that I'm not a huge believer in 17, 18-year-olds figuring out exactly what they want to do for the rest of their life, but I do think it's important to begin exploring and exposing yourself to careers that might not have been known to the student, and that way they hit the ground running when they get to college. So first thing I would point out here is we've got 2 tests here, 2 aptitude tests. One is called the personality type test, which is basically a version of the Myers-Briggs personality type test. And then we have a career interest profiler. Both of these tests can be started and then stopped and saved. Even if you don't have time to complete them, you can come back. Our sample student has completed it, and he's a personality type ISFP. These are explained here, and understanding, Joshua, your strengths, blind spots, what would satisfy you in a career path, your preferred learning style, and then they go into various potential careers, and maybe the student says, well, what's a paralegal? Clicks on that, brings up a pop-up, and we get some explanation about what a paralegal is. These interests relate to the career interest profiler, and the student can see if they match with their own interests. Maybe then you have related occupations. So these are, if you're interested in paralegal, these are other types of jobs around that. So maybe the student clicks on law and says, okay, you read a general job description. You also have these other tabs where it shows, what are the knowledges and skills necessary to be a lawyer? What kind of things do lawyers do? And it even gives you an idea of the wages of lawyers in various states in the United States. I know that's not pertinent to a lot of our students, but it will give them at least an idea. Okay. You can also click on video, and this gives a general video description of the career of law.
The legal system can be confusing and overwhelming to most people. To help individuals and corporations understand and apply the law.
I'll stop that one because I'm not sure if you can hear it. So a lot of good stuff here, and let's say that the student, well, in this case he has already added this to his list, but if he hasn't added it, it would say add to your career list, and within their careers tab they will have potential favorite careers. So he's exploring criminal investigation and special agents, lawyers, and then they're also showing you the career clusters. So this is the broad area that lawyers and criminal investigators fall under, and you might find other things that you're interested in that area. Okay. Last thing I'd point out here, and I think maybe you could encourage your student to take the personality test and the career interest profiler and have a conversation about that. The last thing I'd like to point out is this partnership I have with Road Trip Nation. In this you have over 3,500 videos. This is a group of college students who put together they bought a mobile home and traveled around and interviewed various leaders within a variety of fields. One can explore this through an interest or by theme. We can look at law, since that's what we explored earlier. Okay, so there's 8 different interviews in law. And these are just, short YouTube style videos that will give the student kind of advice and experiences that this person had in getting involved in law. So you get the idea. It gives a little glimpse into this particular career path, and what we're looking at here again is not necessarily determining exactly what career the student would go into, but looking for those light bulbs to go off in their head with an interest in a particular area that they might not have thought of before. So I think that this is a great, Careers tab is a great area for parents to work with the students on, and then share that information with me. Within those particular careers that we mentioned, there is also a link to particular colleges that a student could look at. Again, you could explore it and you could see if find colleges. You could see if there are schools that you might be interested in that weren't on my list. Again, it's absolutely fine to suggest other colleges than what are on my master list. All right, well, that's basically an overview. Obviously, there's a lot more things, in the About Me tab. Oh yeah, I think one of the areas I didn't really describe is the journals. So let me just spend a little bit of time on that. But in the About Me tab, I'm encouraging them to keep their test scores up to date. Again, that'll allow you to compare with other students that I've had that have gotten into those schools. You could encourage them to get the Family Connection mobile app. The journal function is, as we would expect, it is an area where they can keep track of various things. So we see that in our sample student has started a journal on Lehigh here. So he's put this in as my colleges, and he's copied and pasted some information about Lehigh. If you want to add a journal entry, you just go into Journal, add an entry. There are various drop-down categories: my plan, my experiences, my colleges. So again, the idea here is just to help the student organize their life and their preparation. It's a great area within my colleges to kind of explore different schools that they're looking at, share it with the counselor, share it with my parents, and okay, that was Bard College we were looking at. Yeah, so they might be in Bard College, and let's say they find something very interesting, so they copy it and paste it into their journal. I always encourage them to copy also the site they got it from, so they can come back and find it when they're writing their essays later to explain Bard, why they wanted to come to Bard. So it can be just a repository for various things that attract them to a particular college. And then you could add the journal entry here. You can also attach things, right? So let me think if I've missed anything specific. There are obviously other areas that I would encourage students to just kind of explore, and for you to explore as well. Over in the home page on the right-hand side, we have this document library. It's not critical that they go into this. This is where a lot of the documents that I'm going to point them to that are related to tasks. So within the resume tasks that we had here, I'm pointing them out to these documents, which are sample resumes. And similarly, I have resources within the application essays, CollegeSource, personal branding. So they're free to go and look at them if they'd like, but those will be tied to specific tasks, and in that particular task, they'll direct them to go and download those documents. But it is an area that you can also explore. So that's about it. Please do feel free to email me if you have any questions. Play around with it. It's an excellent resource and tool for students to work independently as well as to collaborate with both you guys and me. As I've mentioned many, many times, the goal is to empower them to feel that they've owned this process, and I think this is a great tool to help them do that. Right, I will talk to you soon. Hope this was helpful.